Kiraveth remembered the first time she saw Danny Cole. He was standing in the corner of a crowded trading hall on Station Velanine, watching the chaos around him with quiet eyes. Everyone else was shouting, bargaining, pushing their way through the crowd. But not him. He stood still like a rock in a fast river, calm and patient, waiting for his turn. She had been arguing with a merchant who was trying to cheat her. The man was twice her size and getting louder by the minute. Most people would have backed down. But Kiraveth was Solari, and the Solari did not show weakness. Still, she knew she was losing the argument. Then Danny had stepped forward. He did not raise his voice. He did not make threats. He simply looked at the merchant and said a few quiet words. Something in his eyes made the merchant go pale. The man suddenly remembered that he had made a mistake with the price. He apologized and gave Kiraveth exactly what she had asked for. She had tried to thank Danny, but he just smiled and walked away. That smile stayed with her for days. It was warm and kind, but there was something else behind it. Something she could not quite understand. 3 months later, they were married. Her family was furious. The Solari were an ancient race with a proud history. They had traveled to stars when humans were still living in caves. To them, humans were children playing at being adults. They were weak, short-lived, and far beneath the notice of any respectable Solari family. But Kiraveth did not care what her family thought. She loved Danny, and that was enough. They made a small life together on Station Velarnine. It was a quiet place on the edge of known space, far from the busy trade routes and political games of the inner systems. The station was home to miners, traders, and people who wanted to be forgotten. It suited them perfectly. Danny worked as a cargo handler at the docking bay. It was simple work, loading and unloading ships that came through the station. The pay was not great, but it was honest. He woke early every morning, kissed Kiraveth on the forehead, and went to work without complaint. The other workers liked him. He was always willing to help, always ready to lend a hand when someone needed it. He never got angry, never raised his voice. The foreman said he was the most reliable worker on the station. Kiraveth's people had a different opinion. They called him the soft one behind his back. They laughed at his gentle manner and his quiet voice. A real man should be strong and fierce, they said. A real man should command respect through power. Kiraveth ignored them. She knew something they did not. She had seen the way Danny moved when he thought no one was watching. She had noticed how his body tensed when military ships docked at the station. She had felt the hard muscles hidden beneath his simple worker's clothes, and she had seen his scars. The first time they were together, she had traced the lines across his back with her fingers. They were old and faded, but she could tell they had been deep. Some looked like burns. Others looked like cuts from blades. There were marks on his arms, too, and on his chest. His body was a map of old violence. She had asked him about them once. Just once. He had gone very still, and the warmth had faded from his eyes. For a moment, she had seen something else looking back at her. Something cold and hard and dangerous. Then he had smiled that gentle smile and changed the subject. She never asked again. There were other signs, too. Danny never slept well. He would wake in the middle of the night, gasping for air, his body covered in sweat. Sometimes he would cry out in languages she did not understand. When she tried to comfort him, he would hold her tight and whisper that everything was fine. But his heart would be pounding like a drum against her chest. He never talked about his past. She knew he had grown up on Earth, in a small town somewhere in the middle of the continent. She knew his parents had died when he was young, but everything after that was a blank. 20 years of his life, completely unknown. She had tried to search for information about him once. She was not proud of it, but curiosity had gotten the better of her. She found nothing. No records, no history, No trace of Danny Cole existing before he arrived on Station Velo 9 5 years ago. It was as if he had appeared out of thin air. Any sensible woman would have been worried. Any sensible woman would have demanded answers. But Kiraveth trusted her heart. Whatever Danny was hiding, whatever secrets lived in his past, she knew one thing for certain. He loved her. She could see it in the way he looked at her, in the way he touched her face, in the way he said her name, and she loved him too. That was enough. 3 years passed. They built a life together. Danny learned to cook Solari dishes for her. He learned her language, her customs, her prayers. He celebrated her holidays and listened to her stories about her homeworld. In return, she learned about Earth. She learned about its blue oceans and green forests, its strange music and stranger foods. She learned about baseball and apple pie and something called jazz. They were happy. Truly happy. The kind of happiness that makes you forget there is anything else in the universe. But the universe has a way of reminding you that it came on a night like any other. Kiraveth was preparing dinner while Danny fixed a broken light in the hallway. They were talking about nothing important, just the small, comfortable talk of two people who know each other well. Then the sirens started. The sound cut through the station like a knife. It was the emergency alarm, the one that meant danger, real danger. Kiraveth had only heard it once before, during a reactor leak 3 years ago. Danny was at her side in an instant. His face had changed. The gentle cargo handler was gone. In his place was someone she had never seen before. His eyes were sharp and focused. His body was tense like a coiled spring. He moved with a purpose that seemed almost unnatural. The station speakers crackled to life. A voice filled with panic announced the news. The Black Talon raiders had come. Kiraveth felt her blood go cold. Everyone knew the Black Talon. They were pirates of the worst kind, a group of outlaws from a dozen different species who roamed the Outer Rim. They attacked stations and ships, taking everything of value and everyone they could sell. Those who resisted were killed. Those who survived wished they had died. And now they were here. She looked at Danny, expecting to see fear. Instead, she saw something that scared her even more. She saw anticipation. The explosions started moments after the alarm. Kiraveth could feel them through the floor, deep rumbling sounds that shook the walls and made the lights flicker. The Black Talon were not being gentle. They never were. Danny moved through their small apartment with a speed that surprised her. He pushed aside the heavy storage crate in the corner of their bedroom like it weighed nothing. Beneath it was a section of floor that looked exactly like the rest. But Danny pressed his palm against it in a specific pattern, and a hidden compartment slid open. Kiraveth stared at what was inside. There was a vest made of black material that seemed to absorb the light. There were weapons she did not recognize, sleek and deadly looking. There were small devices, blades, and a black band with strange symbols on it. All of it was packed neatly, ready to be used at a moment's notice. This was not the collection of a cargo handler. This was the arsenal of a soldier. Danny stripped off his work clothes and began putting on the equipment. His movements were practiced and smooth, like he had done this 1,000 times before. The vest went on first, then the weapons in their holsters and sheaths. The black band wrapped around his left forearm, and tiny lights flickered to life along its surface. Kiraveth found her voice. "Danny, what is happening? What is all this?" He did not stop moving. "Listen to me carefully. I need you to stay here. Lock the door behind me. The code is 7-7-1-9. Do not open it for anyone except me. I do not understand. Who are you?" He finally looked at her. His face was calm, but his eyes were different. The warmth was still there, buried deep, but it was covered by something else. Something focused and dangerous. It was like looking at a completely different person. "I am still the man who loves you," he said. But right now, I need to be someone else. Someone I thought I had left behind. He moved toward the door, and she grabbed his arm. Her fingers found a hot muscle beneath the fabric. "Danny, please. Talk to me. You cannot just leave like this." He stopped. For a moment, she saw the struggle on his face. Part of him wanted to stay, to explain everything. But there was no time. Another explosion rocked the station, closer this time. Screams echoed from somewhere down the corridor. "When this is over, I will tell you everything," he said. "I promise. But right now, people are dying. I can stop it. Please trust me." She wanted to argue. She wanted to demand answers. But she looked into his eyes and saw something that made her let go of his arm. It was not anger or coldness. It was certainty. He knew exactly what he was doing. He knew exactly what he was capable of. And whatever that was, it terrified her and reassured her at the same time. "Come back to me," she whispered. He kissed her forehead, the same way he did every morning before work. Always. Then he was gone, moving down the corridor with a speed and silence that should have been impossible. She watched him disappear around a corner, and then she was alone. The next hour was the longest of her life. She locked the door as he had told her, and pushed the heaviest furniture against it. Then she found the old pistol they kept for emergencies and checked that it was loaded. It was a simple weapon, nothing like the deadly equipment Danny had hidden away. But it was better than nothing. The sounds of battle filled the station. She could hear gunfire in the distance, screams, shouted commands in languages she did not recognize. The lights flickered and went out, replaced by the dim red glow of emergency power. The air recyclers made strange noises, struggling to keep working. She tried to contact the station security, but the communication channels were dead. The Black Talon had probably jammed them, cutting off the station from any help. Standard raider tactics. Isolate the prey before moving in for the kill. Karaveth was not a soldier, but she was Solari. Her people had a long history of warfare. She knew how these things worked. The raiders would secure the docking bay first, making sure no ships could escape. Then they would move through the station in teams, taking control section by section. Anyone who resisted would be killed. Anyone valuable would be captured. Station Velo 9 had maybe 50 security officers. The Black Talon usually attacked with hundreds. The math was not good. She thought about Danny out there somewhere, alone against an army of killers. It should have seemed hopeless. But something about the way he had moved, the look in his eyes, the hidden arsenal under their floor, made her think that maybe the raiders were the ones who should be scared. Hours passed. The sounds of fighting moved through the station like a wave, getting closer and then fading away. Sometimes she heard footsteps outside her door, heavy boots moving fast. She held her breath each time, pistol ready, but they always passed by. Then the footsteps stopped outside her door. She heard voices, rough and cruel, speaking in the common trade language. 2 of them, maybe 3. They were laughing about something. One of them mentioned slaves. Another mentioned that they should check the residential quarters for stragglers. The door handle moved. Someone was trying to get in. Kiraveth raised her pistol. Her hands were steady. If they got through the door, she would fight. She would not let them take her without a fight. The handle stopped moving. She heard a thump outside, then another. The sounds were wet and ugly. Someone made a choking noise that was cut off abruptly. Then silence, a knock on the door. 3 quick taps, then 2 slow ones. It was the signal Danny had taught her months ago, a way to let her know it was him at the door. She had thought it was silly at the time. A game between lovers. Now she understood it was something else entirely. She moved the furniture and unlocked the door with shaking hands. Danny stood in the corridor. He was covered in blood. Some of it was clearly not his. At his feet lay 3 black Talon raiders, their bodies twisted at impossible angles. They had died fast and hard. His face was still that calm, focused mask. But when he saw her, something shifted. A crack appeared in the coldness, and she saw her Danny underneath. "Just for a moment. Are you hurt?" he asked Dot. She shook her head, unable to speak. "Good. Stay close to me. We are not done yet." He held out his hand. She took it. His grip was strong and sure, and despite everything, she felt safer than she had all night. Dot together, they moved into the darkness of the dying station. The Black Talon had come to Station Violinide, expecting easy prey. They had done their research. The station had weak defenses, a small security force, and a population of miners and traders who would fold at the first sign of violence. It should have been a simple raid. Move in, take control, grab the valuable cargo and people, and disappear before anyone could respond. Nobody had told them about Danny Cole. Grath was the commander of this raid. He was a Varax, one of the large reptilian species from the outer systems. He stood nearly 3 meters tall and was covered in thick scales that could stop most small weapons' fire. His people were known for their strength and their cruelty. Grath was known for being worse than most. He had led the Black Talon for 15 years. In that time, he had raided over 100 stations and ships. He had never failed. He had never retreated. He had built a reputation so terrifying that some targets surrendered just at the sight of his ship. Tonight, for the first time in his life, Grath was worried that it had started an hour ago. His advance teams had reported contact with station security, easily pushed aside. The docking bay was secure. The main corridors were under control. Everything was going according to plan. Then the reports stopped coming from Team 7. Grath had sent Team 8 to investigate. They found Team 7 dead. All 6 of them. Their weapons had not been fired. Their position suggested they had been attacked from behind, from above, from everywhere at once. Whatever killed them had moved through them like a blade through water. Team 8 went dark 10 minutes later. Grath ordered his forces to regroup, to move in larger groups, to watch their backs. It did not help. Over the next hour, he lost 43 raiders. Some were found with their necks broken. Others had been killed with their own weapons. A few simply disappeared, their communication signals cutting off mid-sentence. The survivors were scared. Grath could see it in their eyes, hear it in their voices. They were hardened killers, pirates who had faced the worst the galaxy had to offer. But something about this was different. They were not being fought. They were being hunted. Reports came in fragments. A shadow moving in the vents. A human who could dodge plasma fire. Hands that could crush bone and bend metal. It sounded like ghost stories, the kind of nonsense scared soldiers told each other in the dark. But the bodies were real. The dead were real. Grath had heard legends about human soldiers like this. During the war between humanity and the Keth hegemony, Earth had created special warriors. They were called specters, men and women who had been selected for their potential and then transformed through years of training, genetic enhancement, and psychological conditioning. They were weapons in human form, designed to fight against overwhelming odds. The war had ended 2 decades ago. The Spectre program had been officially disbanded. The survivors had scattered, their records erased, their identities destroyed. Most people thought they were all dead by now. Apparently, one of them had been working as a cargo handler on this forgotten station. Grath gathered his remaining forces in the central hub of the station. He had started with 120 raiders. He was down to 63, and the number kept dropping. Every few minutes, another communication signal went silent somewhere in the station. They were losing. Against a single human, they were losing. Danny Cole moved through the station like a ghost. He knew every corridor, every ventilation shaft, every maintenance tunnel. He had memorized the layout in his first week on Villa 9, a habit from his old life that he had never been able to break. Back then, he had told himself it was just caution. Now he understood it had been preparation. Part of him had always known this day would come. You could not run from what you were. You could only delay it. He found a group of 5 raiders securing a residential section. They never saw him. He dropped from above, snapped the first one's neck before he hit the ground, and killed the other 4 in less than 10 seconds. It was not elegant. It was efficient. Another group was dragging civilians toward the cargo bay. Danny ambushed them from behind, using their own weapons against them. The civilians ran. He did not stop to comfort them. There was no time. His body remembered everything. The training, the techniques, the cold calculation of combat. It was like putting on an old suit of clothes that still fit perfectly. He had spent years trying to forget these skills, trying to bury this part of himself. But it had always been there, waiting beneath the surface. The Spectre program had taken young men and women and turned them into something more than human. Faster reflexes, stronger muscles, senses that bordered on supernatural. They had trained them to ignore fear, ignore pain, ignore everything except the mission. They had created perfect soldiers. What they had not understood was the cost. Danny had watched friends become monsters. He had seen what happened when humans were pushed past their limits. He had done things in the war that still haunted his dreams. When the fighting ended, he had walked away from it all. He had found a quiet corner of the galaxy, created a new identity, and tried to become a normal person. He had almost convinced himself it was possible. Now, surrounded by the bodies of his enemies, he knew the truth. He had never stopped being a Spectre. He had just been pretending. Kiraveth stayed close behind him as they moved through the station. She watched her husband work with a mixture of horror and amazement. He was nothing like the man she knew. His movements were precise and deadly. His face showed no emotion. He killed without hesitation, without mercy. And yet, every time he looked back at her, she saw something familiar in his eyes. A flicker of the man she loved. He was still in there, buried beneath the soldier, fighting to stay human. She understood now why he had never talked about his past. This was not something you could explain. This was something you had to see. The station shook with another explosion. Somewhere ahead, she could hear the remaining raiders gathering. The final battle was coming. Kiraveth gripped her pistol tighter and followed her husband into the darkness. Whatever happened next, she would not leave his side. The central hub of Station Villa 9 was a large open space where all the main corridors met. It served as a marketplace during the day, filled with traders and shoppers going about their business. Now it was a battlefield. Grath stood in the center of the hub with his remaining forces arranged around him. 61 raiders, armed and ready, watching every entrance. They had pushed the civilians to one side, using them as shields and bargaining chips. Nearly 100 people huddled together, terrified, waiting to see what would happen next. The Black Talon commander had made his decision. No more hunting through corridors. No more losing people to a shadow. He would make his stand here, force the enemy to come to him, and overwhelm him with numbers. It was a good plan. It should have worked. Danny Cole walked into the hub through the main entrance. He did not try to hide. He did not use stealth or surprise. He simply walked forward, calm and steady, like a man taking a stroll through a garden. Grath studied the human carefully. He was not impressive to look at. Average height, average build, plain features. Nothing about him screamed danger. But the Varaks had learned the hard way that humans were full of surprises. The raiders raised their weapons. Waiting for the order to fire. Danny stopped about 20 meters from Grath. His hands were empty, hanging loosely at his sides. He looked around the room, counting enemies, noting positions, calculating angles. It was automatic, something he did without thinking. "You must be the one causing all this trouble," Grath said. His voice was deep and rough, like stones grinding together. "I have to admit, I am impressed. It has been a long time since anyone killed so many of my people." Danny did not respond. His eyes moved to the civilians huddled against the wall. He found Kiraveth among them. She had been captured while he was clearing the lower sections. His mistake. He should have kept her closer. "Here is what is going to happen," Grath continued. "You are going to put down your weapons and surrender. In exchange, I will let some of these people live. Maybe even your Solari woman over there. She looks valuable. Good breeding stock for the slave markets." Something changed in Danny's expression. It was subtle, just a slight tightening around the eyes, a small shift in posture. But Grath noticed it. He had been in enough fights to recognize the moment when someone stopped negotiating and started planning violence. "You have 61 soldiers," Danny said. His voice was calm and flat. "That is not enough." Grath laughed. It was a loud, ugly sound that echoed through the hub. "Not enough? Human, I have burned worlds. I have crushed armies. You are one man against 61 trained killers. The math is simple. The math is exactly why you are going to lose." Grath's smile faded. There was something in the human's voice, a certainty that went beyond confidence. It was the voice of someone who had done the impossible before and expected to do it again. "Kill him," Grath ordered. 61 weapons fired at once. What happened next would be talked about for years afterward. The survivors would tell the story to their children and grandchildren. They would struggle to find words for what they had seen. Danny moved. He was no longer in the place where the plasma bolts hit. He was somewhere else, already among the raiders, already working. His hands were empty one moment and full of stolen weapons the next. He used their own guns against them, turning plasma fire into a storm that cut through their ranks. The raiders tried to track him, but he was too fast. He was everywhere and nowhere, a blur of motion that left bodies in its wake. 3 fell, then 5, then 10. The survivors tried to regroup, but he was already among them, breaking bones and crushing throats. Grath watched in disbelief. This was not combat. This was slaughter. The Varax raised his own weapon, a massive plasma cannon that could punch through starship armor. He aimed at the blur of movement and fired. The shot missed. The human was already moving, closing the distance between them. Grath swung the cannon like a club, but Danny ducked under it and drove his fist into the Varax's knee. The joint shattered with a sound like breaking wood. Grath fell. He tried to rise, but a boot slammed into his chest and drove him back down. He looked up and found the human standing over him, a plasma pistol aimed at his head. The hub was silent. The remaining raiders were dead or running. The battle had lasted less than 2 minutes. Danny looked down at the creature that had threatened his wife, his home, his life. His finger tightened on the trigger. It would be so easy, so satisfying. After everything the Black Talon had done, Grath deserved to die. But he hesitated. He felt eyes on him. Not the raiders, not the survivors. Kiraveth was watching. He could feel her gaze like a physical weight. She was seeing him truly for the first time. Not the gentle husband who brought her flowers. Not the quiet cargo handler who never raised his voice. She was seeing the killer underneath. What she thought of him in this moment would determine everything. Danny lowered. "Weapon. Get off my station," he said quietly. "Take your wounded and go. If I ever see Black Talon colors again in this sector, I will not be so merciful." Grath stared at him with something that might have been respect. "Who are you?" Danny turned away. "Nobody. Just a cargo handler." He walked toward Kiraveth. The crowd parted before him, terrified. He did not blame them. He was covered in blood and death. He looked like the monster he had always been. She stood very still as he approached. Her face was unreadable. He could see her processing everything, trying to fit the man she had married with the killer she had just witnessed. He stopped in front of her. He wanted to say something, to explain, to apologize. But the words would not come. "I was designation 77, he said finally. "Spectre program. Serial number classified. Everything I did is classified. When the war ended, they erased me. I came out here to disappear, to become someone else." His voice cracked. "To be the kind of man who deserved you." Kiraveth said nothing. She just looked at him with those golden Solari eyes. "I understand if you want to leave," he whispered. "I understand if you are afraid of me. I am afraid of me too. But everything I did tonight, I did because I could not let them hurt you. Because losing you would destroy me more than any war ever could." The silence stretched between them, heavy and painful. Then Kiraveth reached out and touched his face. Her fingers were gentle against his blood-stained cheek. "You are still my Danny," she said softly. "You are still the man I married." He broke. The cold mask crumbled, and the soldier disappeared. He pulled her close and held her like she was the only thing keeping him alive. Maybe she was. Around them, the survivors began to move, checking on each other, tending to the wounded. The crisis was over. Life would continue, but nothing would ever be the same. The days after the attack were strange and difficult. Station Velar 9 had survived, but it was wounded. Whole sections were damaged. Power systems were unreliable. The dead needed to be counted and mourned. The living needed to heal. Danny helped with the repairs. He worked alongside the other survivors, lifting debris, fixing broken systems, doing the hard physical labor that needed to be done. He did not talk much. He did not need to. Everyone knew who he was now. Everyone had heard what he had done. The way people looked at him had changed. Before the attack, he had been invisible. Just another worker, another face in the crowd. Now people stepped aside when he walked past. They lowered their voices when he entered a room. Children pointed at him and whispered to their parents. The cargo handler had become something else, something larger than life. Some looked at him with fear. He did not blame them. They had seen what he was capable of. They had watched him kill without hesitation, move faster than any human should be able to move. To them, he was a monster in human skin. Others looked at him with respect. The station had nearly been destroyed. The Black Talon would have killed many and enslaved the rest. Because of Danny, they were alive and free. Whatever he was, whatever he had done, he had saved them all. A few looked at him with something like hope. If humans could produce warriors like this, maybe humanity was not as weak as everyone thought. Maybe the quiet species from the small blue planet was more dangerous than anyone realized. Danny tried to ignore all of it. He just wanted things to go back to normal. He wanted to be invisible again, but he knew that was impossible now. Word of the attack spread quickly. Within days, the story had traveled across the Outer Rim. A single human had defeated an entire Black Talon raiding force. A cargo handler had killed over 70 pirates in a single night. The tale grew with each telling, becoming more dramatic, more impossible. The Black Talon never returned to that sector. Neither did any other raiders. Station Velar 9 became known as the place protected by the human specter. Ships that had avoided the station before now came regularly, knowing they would be safe. Trade increased. The population grew. The station thrived, all because of one man who just wanted to be left alone. Kiraveth watched her husband struggle with his new reality. He did not want to be a hero. He did not want to be feared or respected. He just wanted to be Danny Cole, the quiet cargo handler who loved his wife and minded his own business. But that man had been a mask. And now everyone could see what was underneath. They talked about it, late at night when they were alone. Danny told her everything. He told her about his childhood, taken from his family at age 12 and enrolled in the Spectre program. He told her about the training, years of brutal conditioning designed to transform ordinary humans into living weapons. He told her about the modifications, the drugs that enhanced his reflexes and strength, the surgeries that changed his body in ways that could never be undone. He told her about the war, the missions he had run behind enemy lines, the targets he had eliminated, the friends he had lost, the things he had done that still haunted his dreams. He told her about the end, when the war was over and the Spectres were no longer needed. How the government had erased their records, given them new identities, and scattered them across the galaxy. How he had run as far as he could, trying to outrace his past. Kiraveth listened to it all. She did not interrupt. She did not judge. She just held his hand and let him talk. When he was done, she asked him one question. Do you regret it? Any of it? Danny thought for a long time before answering. I regret the things I did that were not necessary, he said slowly. I regret the times I enjoyed the violence. I regret that I cannot forget, no matter how hard I try. He looked at her. But I do not regret coming here. I do not regret meeting you. I do not regret the life we built together. She leaned against him, her head on his shoulder. Then that is enough. Months passed. Life on Station Vela 9 settled into a new rhythm. Danny went back to work at the cargo bay. The foreman was too scared to give him orders now, but Danny did not care. He showed up every morning, did his job, and went home to his wife. The other workers treated him differently. Some avoided him. Others went out of their way to be friendly, hoping to stay on his good side. A few brave souls actually talked to him normally, treating him like the man he had been before. Those were the ones he appreciated most. Kiraveth's family came to visit. It was unexpected. In 3 years of marriage, they had never acknowledged Danny's existence. They had considered their daughter's human husband beneath their notice. Now they arrived on a transport ship, dressed in their finest clothes, bearing gifts and formal greetings. Danny watched them with quiet amusement. He knew why they were here. Word had spread even to the Solari homeworld. Their daughter had married a Spectre, one of humanity's legendary warriors. Suddenly, the match was not shameful. Suddenly, it was something to boast about. They treated him with respect now. They called him by name. They asked about his health, his work, his future plans. It was all very proper and very fake. Kiraveth saw through it immediately. She accepted their gifts politely and listened to their apologies with a neutral expression. When they were gone, she turned to Danny with fire in her eyes. They only care because you are famous now. They did not care about you before. Danny shrugged. I know. It makes me so angry. You were the same person all along. They just could not see it. He pulled her close. You saw it. That is all that matters. She softened against him. I did not see everything. I did not know about the Spectre program. I did not know about the war. But you knew I was more than I appeared. You trusted me anyway. She looked up at him. I trusted your heart. I still do. That night, Danny stood at the window of their quarters, looking out at the stars. Kiraveth was asleep behind him, breathing softly in the darkness. The station hummed around them, alive and healing. He thought about the future. He knew the peace would not last forever. There would always be threats, always be danger. The galaxy was a violent place, and Station Vela 9 was just a small island in a vast ocean of chaos. But for now, they were safe. For now, they were together. He had spent years running from what he was. He had tried to bury the soldier, to forget the training, to pretend he was someone else. The attack had proven that was impossible. The specter was part of him, woven into his blood and bones. But Kiraveth had shown him something important. The specter and Danny Cole were not enemies. They were two parts of the same person. The killer and the gentle husband. The weapon and the man. He could be both. He could use the skills he had been given to protect the people he loved. He could be the monster that scared raiders away and the man who brought his wife flowers. He could be whole. Behind him, Kiraveth stirred. "Come to bed," she murmured. Danny smiled. It was a real smile, warm and genuine. "Coming," he said. He took one last look at the stars. Somewhere out there, danger was waiting. Old enemies, new threats, challenges he could not predict. Let them come. He was ready.